If you're present and you're in charge or you're the owner and you're in a department, the employee will naturally come to you instead of whoever else is in that department. You have to empower and show the employee that you support the manager.
Yes.
So what I would do in that situation is I wouldn't just shoo-shoo them or stiff arm them. I'd grab a hold of them and say, hey, follow me. Let's go over and talk to X, Y, and Z. Let me see if we can help you through the process. Show the employee that I have that manager's back.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here, but they can't bypass them to come down.
Hey everyone, welcome to Crossroads Conversations with the Lewis Brothers, where we aim to share real stories about running a successful family business, working through adversity, and pouring back into the community that keeps our doors open. We're your hosts, Taylor, Matt, and Shelby, and we'll bring you relevant local business advice and automotive insights that are sure to change the way you look at running a business, and may even throw in a plug for you to do business with us.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 20, Crossroads Conversations with the Lewis Brothers.
Number 20.
Over 20 episodes. Hey, we're diving into a big thing today. How to keep a thriving business, one that is growing, how to keep it successful, driving so fast that you lose sight of the other parts. It's making sure you're staying in the middle of a growing business that is always ever changing, and how you can stay true to that to the core.
Hey, if you missed last week's episode number 19 on professional versus personal, it's something that all businesses struggle with. And as individuals, we all, have that fine line on personal and business and not letting it bleed over. Hey, go check that episode out. Mm-hmm. We really dove into not only personally how we did before work and what we do after work as far as routines, but then also how we coach employees through if we can tell something's on their mind that we've got to get it off their mind to stay productive. So that was a great episode last week. Make sure that you go check it out. And today it's time to get on to, this is going to be a fun subject we're talking to, but make sure to go visit us at lewissuperstore.com to check out all of our latest inventory and our specials to start off 2025.
Talking about inventory, what did we drive today? So this is one of Ford's hottest product. When they launch a all new product, like we get redesigns and we get a new face, but when they can insert a new brand, when they brought out this mid-size, fuel-efficient, cost-effective Ford Maverick.
Oh, so good.
Mm-hmm.
It hit a segment that was just so good. Like hybrid, four-door, now all-wheel drive.
Yep.
That you can get 45 plus miles a gallon. Mm-hmm. It has room enough for 5 people. And I'm talking real deal room. We're not talking about a third row that you're just jamming a suitcase in. It has a pickup bed, and you're not going to hook up I might, but you're not going to hook up a gooseneck trailer to it.
Yeah.
But it has a hobby-style bed to the back of it that's an actual real bed. Mm-hmm. Two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive that starts in the mid-20s.
Yeah. You know what I love about that Maverick is it's one of the vehicles that factual, you see it advertised, you read it on the window sticker about fuel mileage, and it actually does it.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to tiptoe around and like, how am I going to do this? Did I get good fuel? And am I, hybrid driving, toe, blah, blah, blah.
Drive it.
You just drive it and it gets great fuel mileage. I love that it's got a big enough truck bed for all your weekend hobbyists, or to toast, or, to get stuff around, yet it's small enough, like the size of a small SUV to maneuver in and out of places. It's been a fan favorite. I mean, every time we look up, we're sold out of it.
We sell as many as we can get. Oh, yeah. If we had 100, we'd sell 100 within a week. It's a super popular, because of its price point, its fuel mileage, you get exactly what they tell you you're going to get. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of people that transition from never owning a truck into buying this. Like, I didn't need an F-150 or a Ram, or I don't want something super large. So the Maverick is definitely a fan favorite, and I think Ford knocked it out of the park with that one. So
I agree with that.
This week we're going to dive into keeping between the ditches. So first subject I want to talk about, kind of get the conversation going, is sustained growth without burnout.
Okay.
And so we'll break that down. Talking about balancing expansion, so how do we balance of expanding so we don't get hung in a rut? So we're not, we've talked about this before. It's not because we've done it that way, we stay that way, right? We have to be growing. Each day you grow where you get a little less, and someone else is growing, someone else is coming for your market share. long-term health of your business. So how do you keep it healthy so everyone enjoys where they work?
Sure.
Enjoy what's going on. They are challenged. So they're not like, come clock in, do my deal, go back home. Avoid overextension.
Yes.
So I'm not saying, hey, you're currently doing X.
Yes.
Now can you do triple X?
Yeah.
So understanding that. And then a strategy that kind of naturally allows people to grow. So the first point there is strategy to scale responsibly.
I think all three of those, or however many subjects you just went over, they all correlate together. And when we start thinking about hitting all those different metrics, if you're out there in the business world, you're like, okay, I hear you. And yes, that's happening in my business, or I can see that happening. What do I do in each of those areas? Really, it roots down to one. And here's what I think about that one is people need to be challenged. And if they're not challenged and if they don't have something new to do, the brain doesn't like that of the monotonous activity, especially in our business where you got a lot of type A personalities. They'll get bored with that, which will equal burnout, so on and so forth. I am going to say before I go into a couple ideas here, be very careful about what I'm getting ready to tell you because we've made the mistake at this. I know I have too. When you look for something new to challenge people, also look for something you can delete or you could take off of their plate. We're too often guilty of add on from a capacity, and there's other things we could have pruned or we could have taken away that we're not using anymore.
Or delegate.
Delegate.
So if something that's proven that works, move that down.
Yes.
Move that over. So yes, pruning is definitely necessary, but also is it something that someone else could perform?
Yes.
So you can insert something new to continue to grow.
That's a great checks and balances you bring up there is like, okay, if we're looking at subject A, if it's still relevant in moving your business forward, you might actually be able to take that task, give it to somebody else, which would then be challenging them with something new. And then the person you removed it from, you add something new to them.
And we've talked about types of people, and because the person who's working on that has the ability to troubleshoot and to figure out, chances are they've gotten pretty good of getting a pretty defined path of a cruise control of how this operates. So then they can delegate or move to someone else's plate who's not a problem solver.
Sure.
And now it has a very clear written path. And so as we talk about growth, you have to know your growth person, and then you delegate and move that. Man, here's the game plan. Here's how you do it. Here's your checks and balances.
Yes.
Here's how we know if it's good, if it's bad, if it's growing, if it's declining. So then that person could handle. Initially, if you said, hey, I want to start a new division and we need to sell toilet paper, they'd say, I have no clue what you're talking about. I don't even know. I just want to do my job.
That's true. One of the things that we've all had this discussion behind the scenes about this multiple times. We've not always been the best at that, at challenging people with new things. We put people in position. We give them the time, tools, and training necessary to succeed, and then we move on to our next task. We talk about the manufacturers. Ford's an easy one to talk about here, where they'll change reps or they'll change positions. And one of the things I have to think that they're doing behind the scenes is making sure they're challenging people with new stuff. We found ourselves before putting somebody in a position and 10 years later, 12 years later, they're doing the same thing, And while we might say, hey, here's a new goal, here's how to achieve the next level, we're not necessarily challenging them with something new. And that's something we've had to start looking at. Probably if you're a small business, you need to look at as well. If you have somebody that's done the same thing for 10, 12, 5 years, you might be on that edge of burnout just because they haven't been challenged with something new in a while. So that's a big one.
That's a big deal, is of just challenging it. And like the quick test, like the test, like, the pool strips that you put in and say, hey, what's my pH level?
Sure.
The test that you can see, am I challenged enough? And am I scaling? Is when's the last time that you were nervous? Am I prepared enough? Am I doing a good enough job? When was the last time that you were nervous? Like, you know what? I don't know that I fully have that figured out. So if it's simple and easy and you can do it while you're sleeping,
sure.
One, you've gotten really good at it, but you're not challenging yourself enough there. So the next thing that kind of talks about, starts the conversation of scaling responsibly, of understanding, pruning some things, growing some things, delegating some things. The next I want to talk about signs that your growth is unsustainable. So to kind of like, what are some signs that you would see that growth within the company, that it's unsustainable for you or for employees that you've seen?
You know, the biggest deal there, and you always preach of this of going, and we talk about of, you know, we call it a Mack truck theory or anything else of going in there. Whenever you look and you say, hey, what are my things that I'm doing daily? Whenever I'm going over it, could I pull myself back from this to be able to allow others to do it? That's not something you want to do for long term. But if I remove myself to be able to work on this other area and then come back and manage it, that's whenever I realize, hey, I either don't have the right people in place or being able to put it to where it can grow. That's whenever I start feeling it of, hey, our process isn't there and I need to work on this because I know that it needs to scale over here. It's no different than me learning of going through of being a sales manager and continue to grow there of I've tried to remove myself so the rest of my team can be able to grow, and I've seen holes in everything there of growing fast paced that I haven't enabled them to be able to learn and go through. So that's a thing on our sales side that I've really seen of growing. Enable others, make sure you're teaching them correctly, but that's a quick indicator that, hey, well, slow down, you need to get your processes in place because this is not scalable.
Hey, you know, that exact question about like signs. So let's give some telltale to the audience out there. You know, if you find yourself or just a couple people around you always having to stay late, let's say, or if you start seeing that your customers, their wait time is too long, or your CSI score is going down, you know, or any of these other metrics you look at from a customer satisfaction, your oil change in our business is taking too long. Those are signs that your growth right now is not sustainable, that you need to put in some layers. Now, on that question, you got to make sure it's unsustainable at its current structure, but it may be good for business, so you just need to layer people in. You know, no different than our oil change. You know, that was unsustainable on how long it was taking because we were going to end up driving customers away. So then it's how do we redo that structure to make sure we don't have burnout? We've got 3 people that are just, they're getting overtime and they're loving the money part, but at some point in time, they will get burned out on that.
That's a really good point. And so there might be that it's a really good idea. You just haven't figured out the really good process.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater yet.
And somebody was asking me about this, about a new business and an all-new campus, and they called me and said, hey, what's your thoughts on the parking? They called me just yesterday about that, and I said, okay, let me figure out how to properly give you my opinion that's constructive, right? I said, that's a really good question.
Sure.
I said, I was super frustrated in the parking. I said, and I'm not a very patient person. I felt like just walking home. I would rather walk and be moving than sitting in parking when I couldn't handle it. And because the place I was at, I couldn't just hop the curb and drive through your grass.
Sure.
So I said, you have to understand that this little point in your process, the idea wasn't bad. The reason that people were there, or the idea of, you're selling chicken and fries, or you're selling cars, they're excited about the idea. But if your execution was not proper and not timely, then they completely say, I never want to go back again. I love the place.
Sure.
I love the service that I got, but it was not timely, and I didn't value that. So make sure that you don't just toss out the idea, like you said, bath out with the baby out with the bathwater, but then also understanding to be able to completely have the process for someone to enjoy the entire thing. So that might take some time of whiteboarding.
Yeah.
Here's an idea, what's our execution? Here's an idea, here's our execution. And that's something we're constantly working on of our growth of, does that person have a written plan?
Yep.
Do they understand their job roles, their responsibilities? And if you constantly keep getting the same question from the same group of people, they don't have a clear definition of how they're supposed to be doing or what's good or bad.
Yeah, that's something we definitely have dealt with this last year of growing is your timeliness of everything of the process that we've ran into. It has been big.
It is. If you haven't gone back, go back and listen to episode 14 for more about that. We really get into problem solving and mindset. What we talk about during that episode is getting your core group of trusted influencers. So no different than Shelby's talking about. Don't try to solve it yourself if you're a business leader. You need outside people giving you input because your vision may be blurred because you're in the middle of it, and you need an outside perspective or an employee perspective to help you see what the solution is.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely. So that definitely talks about sustaining growth without burnout and kind of breaks that down.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, you're going back and forth on your... Hold on, cut for a second. You want me to go back over unsustainable?
No, you're good. Just jump into your fun fact quiz.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. So, fun fact automotive quiz of the week. We've got it going in there. Hey, this is going to throw a lot of people off, but what is the most popular car color? I say this because people have an idea. And
what is the most popular color car?
Before I'd even say, you would probably say red, but red's not even a list in there.
You would probably mix that with what's the most pulled over
I
car.
know,
That's what people are going to say
over. But your options there are A, black, B, gray, C, white, or D, silver. Keeping it all in the neutral palette.
I think I got this one.
Okay.
Black, gray, white, or silver. Don't tell the world. Okay, lock it in, but don't tell it. We'll come back to that here shortly.
Hey, kicking it into the next topic there, staying rooted in your core mission and values. We talked about sustaining growth without burnout, but this is how in all of that you stay rooted in your core mission values, staying true to what makes your business unique while adapting to change and maintaining your why that obviously is what drives your business every day. So diving into the first thing here, revisiting and refining your mission as your business grows.
You bet. I think, and we're a perfect example about this right now as we start scaling from, 9 acres to 26 acres and, 40-something thousand square feet to 150,000 square feet. And just from an employee standpoint of 150 employees now growing to almost 300 employees, this is a perfect example of how do we stay rooted in our core mission and values, yet grow in a scalable manner here in Northwest Arkansas as the area grows. One of our things we talk about is we have to make sure we're rooted in our culture with employees first. Mm-hmm. Okay, we got to take care of our employees first because they're the ones that take care of our customers, and then our entire local economy as well. So we talk about that. Our goal in business is that we provide a great place for employees to come earn a living to support their family and then continue to give back to the local community. And our goal in staying rooted there is then to do it at even a larger level. Is how can we make a great place for people to come earn a living, support them, and they can flourish with a great culture, and then how we pour back into our local community so that entire circle continues to come around as it always has.
I think that's a really good point because nowhere in there, and it's not to say that we're not open for business, but nowhere in there did you say sell as many people or take as much people's money as possible. And we know, right? We've heard, we've listened, and we've seen that without the customer, we can't be sustainably in business.
Sure.
But we flipped that backwards. We talked about is the customer always right? Mm-hmm. We understand the customer is very, very important, but we flipped that a little bit to say our employees are generally our most important.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people miss that right there, and you could see it by, tell me what your meeting looks like.
Yeah, so our meetings, of any meetings, right, is we don't always say bring all the people because we would have all of the people.
We would have them all.
But it is very family friendly.
Yes.
It's very clear and understanding. It's always going to have music.
Sure.
It's going to have lights, and it's going to be very, very fun and inviting and exciting that everyone... they're not going to leave there with their head down. They're not going to leave there defeated, even if we're not where we need to be.
Yes.
Right? It's going to say, okay, here's our goal, and here's how we grow, and here's how we get where we're going, and here's your game plan, and we try to ultra define how to do that, but it's in a positive and productive manner.
I think that's what the important part is. And if you peel back the layers, and some of y'all out there, if you've done this, it's a great day for you to reset on it, redirect, is you never want to have a meeting with employees, that belittles them, brings them down, that you're hollering, that you're threatening, that you're managing by fear. And then you're like, go take great care of my customers. I mean, how does that make sense?
I think that goes against treat others like you want to be treated.
Yet so many people out there do it. And can I tell you, when I see somebody managing by fear, it shows me somebody that lacks the ability to manage. They don't have the ability to actually coach, actually bring somebody up, than to be successful. So you hit on the point. I know I kind of side railed us there for a little bit, but it starts as simple as that. And how do we take care of those employees so then our customers get taken care of? So then it is a great culture to work in, and that we can continue to give back to the local economy and the charities and organizations at even a greater level.
Absolutely. That's so big. And he hit on a point there. And if you are in a managerial position or anything else, what it tells more than not, if you can't be in that atmosphere and be able to pour into your team, is you're not taking the time to build yourself up. Because naturally, as a leader, anything else going through, if you get drained, if you're beat, if you're against the wall and you're out of juice, out of steam of everything, naturally 90 to 95% of people will go to that. So always spend time. Whether we talked about our morning routine, we talked about pouring back into, you always have to do that to be ready to be able to teach your team and be able to be in the middle of that.
I'll tell you something we do on checks and balances, and we just naturally do this, but it just clicked in my brain, is that, when we have our meetings, take it a sales meeting or take it this or that, there's more than one manager in there. And if we're all human. If somebody's having an off day or they're not pouring in at the level that we expect, we cut them off.
It's no different than this podcast that I might ask Taylor a question. Taylor might ask me a question. We ask a manager, hey, bring your best, bring your specials.
Yes.
But we realize they're not exactly going the direction we feel it needs to go. I'm not going to say, hey, Taylor, you don't have it today. Get the heck out of here.
Yeah.
I'm going to reframe that I try my best not to insult him so I don't belittle him. And I'm going to give direction to the next person. Hey, Matt, dive a little bit deeper into that. And so then Taylor's like, man, I am a little off today. But he didn't just throw me out of the corner. He didn't dog cuss me in front of all the people. And I can count on Matt to pick up my slack, right? Yep. And so in our manager meetings, that's going to happen. Someone's going to have, maybe they aren't as jacked up as what we're looking for. And that's okay.
That's all right.
And we can circle back in a one-on-one session and say, hey, how can I help you? And then that allows us to break that down. One more thing I want to put on that of realizing, we went over this morning because we went over it yesterday in our board meeting, and I shared it with the team because I had to go more in depth because the Lewis Ford team, the team that I'm responsible for, there is a lot of people, like a lot of people, and I had to visually. I'm a visual guy.
Sure, yeah.
I'm a digital visual person, so I couldn't whiteboard it all, but I digital whiteboarded. So as Matt would have the marker, and this may have been easier because I was having to edit off. So I had to break it down of who was responsible for who. And like when it got to service, there's 48 people in service. And so the board was like, so is the service manager, is his ratio 48-1?
Yeah.
I was like, well, no, it breaks down a little bit more. So then after I left the board meeting, I was like, I need to do a better job of, so the board understands, but then to make sure the team understands. So if you're whipped and worn out, my point to this whole thing is there's probably not a proper org chart of knowing if this person keeps coming to Taylor, Taylor should have a 6-1, a 7-1 ratio, but probably maybe he has 18-1 of people that come ask us, some people from service and some people from product and delivery and some people from sales. So that was then my job to start that conversation with the team, with the manager team this morning to say, here's the thing. And I'm not going to say, hey, Larry, thanks for coming to ask me, but I'm not your boss.
Get the heck out of here.
Get the heck out of here. I'm going to say, hey, perfect. Yeah, let me help you with this thing.
Sure.
And then let me show you who is going to be able to give you more time.
Yes.
And that's going to be this guy. he's the one that really specializes in your department. And so then that was a structure that I realized, like, okay, I need to make sure everyone understands that.
That's a great point. That actually is going back to our core one, but we got to park there for a second because it's an exercise we're going through, as a dealership, as an automotive group, as a whole, and we've been working through for a couple months now. And it started off with, what's your org chart look like? And I had everybody bring that. And then it was list out your ratio of manager to employees. If that's off, that will equal core one we talked about, which was burnout. And I studied and read and listened to a lot of military structure on that. When you look at the military, they have that ratio down so the leader can make clear, correct decisions in the middle of battle. And they can coach their team. If you've got somebody, now I've been here too. You take me in my 20s and, just full of piss and vinegar and rock and roll. It's like, how many people can you put underneath me? I can handle them. But, I had blinders on to see, could I effectively just maintain 20 or 30 people? Yeah, but I wasn't helping anybody grow because I couldn't dedicate the time to them to break them down, which equaled burnout because other people weren't getting the attention I needed. And then I was spread out too thin too. Yeah, that's a great point you bring up.
Absolutely. Really, we've circled all around this and y'all kind of been hitting it, but this leads straight into the next area there. How to build a team that reflects and respects your values. We've kind of all talked about it, but how do you go out and do that?
So they have to understand what your values are.
Yes.
What's important, that you're not about just being the lowest price. You're not about being the absolute fastest. You're not about absolutely just like having no moral compass. So they have to understand that. We've talked about that before, that now our dealership as a business has more new people in it than our OG people that understand 10 years ago what it looked like. So we have to very quickly define, and it happens very quickly. From HR, when Kenny takes the time to tour the entire campus, they see, whoa, this guy cares. And then they come and see us in different atmospheres, and they see the gym, and they see the employee workspaces and the balconies for every person. So then they get a pretty good idea something's different here. And then we get to define that, of what the expectation is here. The way that we communicate, that no matter where you go in the dealership, you're not going to be hearing F-bombs and people hollering this and that. So that culture slowly creeps in, but then we constantly have to make sure that we manage that so then they understand. I think that allows us to build a team that understands our values, that we're not looking for a quick deal. Hey, if I can pull the wool over Mrs. Smith's eyes, make a quick deal, high five, we made big money. The price online is the same price it is here, and the trade value is exactly what we say it is. Yeah. And we have to do that constantly.
Yes.
Not only that, but with our vendors too. And some people might not realize this, but we're a direct liaison to a little over 30 banks. That means we've gone through accreditation to make sure that whatever we represent to them, it is true and 100% accurate, whether it be the value on the vehicle, somebody's credit, their actual income, job time, so on and so forth. So there's been deals before, like, we're not doing that deal. I know they got approved down the road, but this is what factually is the reality of their job time and their income. And it's not worth a quick deal to us to run a relationship with a vendor we have that's funding all of our other deals, because we're in the long-term game.
And getting people to understand that when we scale, when you're not touching every single deal.
It's tough.
Yeah, because you got to go, you're talking about type A personalities, jacked up, ready to go, you got emotions going, and then you have to turn around and be the bad guy, saying, hey guys, no, this is not what got us here. We have to adapt and change, but we're not going to do this. And then you have two people at least that are staring at you, a manager and a salesperson, that you hit go, you're going, and you have to pull back, which is not the fun part, but you have to continue to do that or your core values will change.
And I think it's really important there because, the question is how to build a team that reflects and respects your values. We do a whole lot of what we call an ETO. It's an early turnover, and that's from manager to salesperson, a manager to customer, finance manager to customer, and that could be service manager to customer. When you are building that relationship and talking with that customer, whether it's a longtime customer or a brand new customer, they will be very honest with you. And so then you can quickly tell the temperature. You handle the situation, help them find the quickest and easiest and simplest path. And then you get to have that one-on-one meeting after, hey, what happened here? Yes. And then you get to correct that culture and say, hey, instead of that, let's try this. Let's say this instead of that. And then you go back to your strategy plan and say, let's rewrite that. And so then maybe that's a Monday morning training meeting for the entire team. Hey, little Jimmy said this. I'm not saying that you all do, but if you did, here's how we should handle that situation. And so then they're like, huh. And so then we write it into the training manual. And so the next person, we don't leave it up to question.
Yeah.
That's good. I think another thing I want to reach out and tell people is that you got to be present as a manager or as a leader or the owner. You've got to be present and around it if you want to hear what's going on to effectively train on it like you talked about. So I'm going to give you a couple tips. Now, we had we were blessed with being able to redo all the dealerships, and we designed it all. If you were going on a full-blown tour with us, something you would see is all of our managers, they are positioned both visually and in audio to be able to hear what's going on in their departments. Because if you can't hear and see what's going on, there's no way that you can make sure that your core mission and values stay intact.
Yeah.
So all of our managers' doors are open so they can hear. You know what I mean? And if you'll think about our sales managers, how close they are to hear what the salespeople are going through, our parts manager, our service manager, and then not only that, then you take, Shelby, you take like yourself, for example. Your office is upstairs, but then I'll see you down on the showroom using a table, working on stuff, just so you can hear what's going on. So then you have relevant training. The best way, especially for us to coach, is to be in the middle of it and hear what's relevant and what's going on, instead of just throwing darts at it. So if you're out there and you're like, man, I hear what you're saying, I don't know when to go over it, and I don't know what they're actually doing, move your office. Move your office. Grab an iPad, grab your laptop, and go just sit out in the middle of the break room, or sit where they're answering the phone call, or wherever it may be, or out in the field. Just get involved where you can actually hear. That's one of my favorite things to do is I'll hear what's going on, and unless it's something illegal or ethical, I let it go on, and then I address that person right after the fact, in the moment of like, hey, I know you said this, you should have done this. I know this went on, you got to think about it from this perspective. And then I can coach them in the moment and in the middle of the action. That helps keep the glue to your core mission and values.
And the cool thing is it does two things. It allows the employee and the customer to know that you care, that you took the time to help them. So if they needed help with something, you're like, oh, hey, let me show you real quick. Not even if they were doing it wrong, but they were just stuttering.
Sure.
You're able to help them through that. So the customer knows you care. The employee, maybe brand new, is like, oh man, he helped me out. And then you're able to, like you just talked about, fully break down and teach on something that is relevant. So it's double-sided.
All right, pro tip for you there, and then we'll move on. This will happen to you. If you're present and you're in charge, or you're the owner and you're in a department, the employee will naturally come to you instead of whoever else is in that department. You have to empower and show the employee that you support the manager.
Yes.
So what I would do in that situation is I wouldn't just shoo-shoo them or stiff arm them. I'd grab a hold of them and say, hey, follow me. Let's go over and talk to X, Y, and Z. Let me see if we can help you through the process. Show the employee that I have that manager's back. And I'm sitting here, but they can't bypass them to come to me.
And then you can slowly exit out of that. And you're just like, hey, actually, let's go check on Terry. Terry's actually way better at that than I am.
Exactly.
So then you just built up Terry, the manager. You empowered him, and you're like, hey, Steve, Terry, you guys work together. You have similar, and then you just slowly exit out the back. And then it's no different than that org chart. And I'm like, hey, this and this and this. And then they're like, oh, well, why did I go ask Shelby? He didn't even help me handle it. It was Terry that did it.
Same thing happens with a customer. I know you guys are the same way, but it's, you got a really good customer of yours that comes in and you want to stay connected, but there's 5 other people over there that need your help. You'll talk to the customer, and then you get ready to give them to Terry, who's your salesperson. Well, your intro to Terry is like, hey, Terry's going to help me out. He's going to go over the F-150 with you. In fact, he knows more about the F-150 than I do.
I love doing that.
You know what I mean? And so then all of a sudden it raised his confidence up. Yeah. And then also your customer too, of like, man, I'll still be there behind the scenes, but Terry knows the ins and outs and studies these F-150s. I'll let him take it from there.
That is my favorite thing to do, because we still have tons of people, and I'm gracious, never stop. If you're on the other side of this microphone, never stop.
Keep coming.
They will reach out to me, but they'll text me, and so then I'll group text between them and the sales professional and say, hey, salesperson, this is my good friend. Hey, they're looking for this. I want to help you out. And then I'll greet them at the door when they get there and say, hey, here's the guy I was talking about. He's the F-150 expert. And if a good salesperson gets it, they will do their best to take over that. And then they just like show me. It's like their big bass on the wall. They're like, hey, I was able to take care of your customer, and they didn't even have to ask for you.
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
You know what I mean?
That's
so if you can, and so then they feel super empowered, and they know if they don't deliver high level, the next customer reaches out, I'm going to give to the next salesperson. But if they continue to take care of them, which is for the customer, that means they get a better experience, because you can't give them all the time that they need, that they deserve.
Still be able to.
So if you can help them, they're not like, well, why won't you deal with me? I say, well, I'm happy to deal with you, but it's going to be at a limited schedule.
Absolutely. So that's really helping, showing, continuing to teach, coach, everything else of core values of your team in there. Hey, last one here. And this is big when your business is growing, but adapting, and I'm kind of change it there to, it says new technologies, but new processes while staying authentic to your core values, your brand, your vision. How do you do that, and when do you do that?
I think that's happened a lot throughout the years, especially in the automotive business. And like, for example, if you'll take during COVID, just this all online buying experience where they thought that was going to shift. And we embraced that technology on whether it was getting a value on your vehicle, payment estimators, building a vehicle, like trying to do the whole deal. But it wasn't a set it and forget it. It was like, hey, here's tools that enhance the buying experience, yet we're still right next to you, and we'll come in at whatever point you want. If you want to do all the research and you got it all put together, except doing the paperwork in the dealership, we're great with that. If you want us to jump in at the point on you can't figure out if you want an XLT or a Lariat, we'll jump in there too. So I think it's important to utilize technology, but realize the consumer has different entry points based upon their habits and maybe even their age on where they want your help with.
That's super important and relevant. You have to have the technology, otherwise you just get mowed over. Wait, you can't book online, or you can't deliver to me, or think about that. If you're looking for food to be delivered to you and you don't want to go, and your favorite restaurant isn't on a delivery app, and they don't have that, you just don't get the business.
I think about the restaurant industry, that there are some people that have gone to just kiosks to order, and I watch customers that go in there, or Tractor Supply is a great example we'll talk about in a minute.
Oh my God.
But why don't you have avenues? Because some people, they love the technology, and they're like, don't mess with me. I know what I'm doing. Just be there for when I need you to be.
Yeah.
Grab the phone. And other people are like, heck with that. I want to talk to somebody. So the restaurant industry, some of them have gone to kiosk only now, and you see people just like standing there. And I have to think that some of them, if they didn't leave right then, they may not come back, because there are some people that still need somebody to take their order.
Yeah.
There's other people like, no, I know I want my blah, 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 and they hit go. Tractor Supply, same example. They got self-checkout. Now, I like using the self-checkout.
Love it.
Because I can rock
If it's
through
slow, it's your fault.
It's my fault.
Yeah.
It's on me, so on and so forth.
But generally, you can move fast, and you like
Generally,
it.
you can move
So what
faster.
happens at Tractor Supply, though?
Tractor Supply, the line is still longer on the left side. I can see it visually in my brain of the people that do not want to use that kiosk.
Or maybe they're just like foreign to it or something. I don't know.
No, we're talking like there's 6-7 people in line.
They'll have like 150 pounds of dog food on their shoulder.
I'm like, just scan it, hit ×6,
Like, unless I have to weigh the bolts out.
I know.
I'm going to the self-check. It's so funny, but like the new technologies of realizing that, like some people were anti-AI.
Sure.
But we realized, and we talked about this before, but we have an AI/real platform for communication. And we talked about effective communication within service. It's over 15,000 text messages that are sent per month through this. And so AI helps us manage that. Not that it's sending the text message. It has a whole lot of automated text message, but it's not a Regina who's a robot who's sending it, but it helps us manage that. And it says, hey, whoop, it's been 3 minutes. No one's responding to this. Sure. And so then it alerts you. It starts with the specific advisor, then it goes all team. And then after 9 minutes, it goes service manager, service director, and me.
Yes.
And so it says, hey, can someone else handle this because someone needs attention? Really? So instead of having to pick up the phone or process through, you can do it via, because people don't necessarily want to talk on the phone, but they need information.
Communicate.
And so that's adapting to new technology, but also being able to send a text and say, hey, can I just call you and go over this with you? And then a customer can adapt from there. So realizing the path that each person wants to go, but
still being there too.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you're embracing the technology, yet you're still there to interject in at any point in time.
Yes, and it's not like sometimes you get on a phone system and you can't find a person and everybody's hitting zero, like operator. Of realizing to still have that human element, because we don't want to be corporate. We don't want to be a 1-800 number that you can't get a hold of a human. But if you just want to be able to text while you're waiting on a flight and you don't want to call somebody, or you're not able and you're in a meeting, you can shoot a text, say, hey, how's my car coming? We'll be done by 3. Then that's able to do that.
Or if you don't embrace some of that technology, it's really hard for you to scale and then keep that personal local touch.
Yeah, because our amount of RO growth continues to grow without having to have a bajillion people, which is not sustainable. We could not facilitate, handle, and properly manage that many consumers without having technology to help us do that.
Absolutely.
Hey, what a great subject we went over there, Taylor. But we got to get back to that automotive fun fact quiz of the week. What was the most popular, or what is the most popular car color? The y'all's choices was A, black, B, gray, C, white, or D, silver. I know y'all aren't looking at the answer, so tell me, what do you think it is?
I'm going to go back with the good old great Henry Ford quote of, you can have any color so long as it's black.
So Taylor's vote's black. What vote are you putting in there, Shelby?
We see a lot of silvers and grays. So maybe silver?
I know you guys were playing along. What you really know that the answer is white. It's white.
Yes.
Okay, I don't think that's a surprise to
White
anybody.
always looks good.
White is the tried and true. Always looks good.
Clean.
You know what I mean? You got 2 different segments you can hit there. The chrome person with all the chrome and the white. Or if you want the blacked out, monochromatic, sport look, you can kind of hit 2 different demographics with the same color.
That's why a lot of our cars on lot are white.
That's right. Yeah, you can't go wrong with it.
That's what people want.
Yeah. All right. Hey, next up, as we start talking about, identifying all these different areas on scaling your business, changing, staying rooted in your core mission and values, we also have to talk about the holistic business success. Okay? And what I'm challenging you to about here is addressing the risk of focusing too much in one area. Okay? And then when you get, and we've all done this, we get down the rabbit hole of hyper-focused in an area, and then we end up neglecting some other areas.
Yes.
Because we were just like focused, blinders on, and like, hang on, this is going on over here. So you guys walk me through where you've seen that happen.
Definitely see it happen, right? Sometimes and I try not to do it often, but I've gone deep into the data and deep into the numbers, like to break it down of X time and X amount of times that we've talked to this person and what is their percentage of closing of leads versus people that show up. And so really going into that, and I think to keep from fully going down that rabbit hole and losing sight of the greater picture of core value or the normal revenue before you look for the extracurricular revenue, is to have your 1, key people, 2 key processes, and 3 KPIs, so your key performance indicators. So we have our main meetings, and we know our main goals, and we have our main metrics that we have to. So I think you have to have those things so you don't totally, go the airplane, Howard Hughes, who locked himself into the room forever and totally lost track of all the other things.
I think you bring up a great point there, and you'll resonate this when I say this gentleman's name. And it never really made sense to me when I was in college about what he was saying until we got deep into the business. Is that, we had a professor up in Michigan in college, and then shout out to Mr. Joe Lascota there, that said, hey, I can teach monkeys how to compute the numbers.
Yeah.
But it's the actual people who take the numbers and do something with it.
Yes.
And what you're saying there is you can get so deep into data as you keep looking at this and this and this and this. You need the data, you need the information, but then you need to do something with it to move the needle.
Yeah, you have to have a good mixture. You know what I mean? You got to have a little bit. Remember, I talked about being nervous. Yeah. You got to have some stuff that's breaking the mold a little bit. Hey, today, in our doc meeting, we go over our normal things and the normal key performance indicators and where we're at and the forecasting. But then here's our new challenge.
Yes.
And so there has to be like, oh, hey, that was different.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about that. And okay, and so then that allows you to have, a good 50% of what's normal or 80% of what's normal. And then here's 20% new of something we're going to try. And then here's a random thing over here to insert and try. You have to have it for growth, but you have to have your thing to keep you between the ditches. So you're not just like, thought we were going to Florida and we weren't really going to follow a route and you end up in North Carolina.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And Shelby was hitting it. No matter if it's brothers or whatever else business partners you have to have people that do different things. Shelby is so data oriented there, and I love data. I love reading through data, but I manage really well of going around and seeing people, how they're doing, listening to it, and seeing the flow of how it needs to go, and physically being with the guys, with any of your employees, workers. And I'm like, no, try this. No, do this. No, look at this. And then being able to come back around and go over verbally anything else there. So, but without any of, Shelby having a data, Matt having a data that I could be able to back up off of and go over, because, 70% of going over anything is nonverbal. So verbally, you can't just go over everything. You got to be able to have charts, graphs, whiteboards, digital or the old school like Matt likes, but of going over everything there.
That's right. And you got to remember, as an owner, sometimes we all need a checkup of how we think and how we can pivot. Our employees, even if they're managers, they don't think the same way because they don't want to disappoint you and they don't want to put their neck on the line. They're following whatever direction you're pointing them in. So don't expect them to just be able to take data and then put it in place. I learned this, and if you're in one of our manager meetings, whether it's a Monday or a Friday, we'll go over some data, we'll go over the trends, but then I try to give some takeaways of here's your action plan, so that then the managers have a clear expectation of what I'm asking them to do. It's like, here's the data, but here's where I want you to work. All right, here's what we've moved. This is what you put in place to keep moving forward. Especially in our business, if it's the first couple days of the month, this gets really tricky with a lot of balls in the air, because we're talking to managers, making sure everything gets to the office. We got all the deals to the office from the month before, and any loose ends so the office can get it all posted. We can finish up our financials. We can get everybody paid. Yet at the same time, it's like, I need you to do this, and then be ready to pivot and go the next route. The office can then take it from there. Don't get too far down that rabbit hole, because then I need you working on new business as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and two different challenges there of measuring and realizing focusing too much on one aspect. And I'll go back to the parking thing, and the guy was asking me about it. And I said, hey, stage one, what I would tell you to do, I need you to go to the tech or the marketing team, tell them to get their drone out or ask them nicely, and tell them to time-lapse your entire thing. I said, then you can go back and watch it, and it's no one's opinion. You can highlight.
Sure.
Everyone turns here, and they can't get there.
Yeah.
Everyone goes here. It's no different than when in our loop bay we said, hey, go classic old school tally and tally.
Tally
what time are the people here, and what's the longest wait time, and where do we have a void? So you don't get lost hyper focusing on something, but you also are not stuck on, sometimes someone brings you a problem like, is that your problem or is that the department's problem? And I'm not saying that they're two different things, but it might be their opinion, and in reality, something's going on at home, and so they're bringing it to work. So taking a full overview, like, hey, give me all the data, and then that allows us to not get lost in just one rabbit hole.
We've made so much progress in Quick Lube because of that. Like you said, we were like, all right, there's all these systems, but just have somebody tally it. And then again this afternoon when we have our service meeting, we'll go over that and we'll be able to identify productive and non-productive times and make progressive decisions based upon those facts.
Purely on facts.
Yep. No, that's good. All right, let's get into our frequently asked questions. I think this is a fan favorite everybody likes to hear, so y'all think about that. What was a frequently asked question that you get, whether it be about our business or about our family or what's going on, but besides when it's going to snow. So Taylor, you up first on that. What's a frequently asked question that you have to answer?
More than anything right now, I've gone through besides, are you going to eat that whole steak? I'm just kidding. I'm on a carnivore kick right now, and I eat a lot of steak throughout the day. But people ask me that, and I'm like, have you not gotten over this? I've been eating it for 4 months. But the biggest deal is, you and your brothers always have such a good attitude. What's the deal there? So then I love always going back and sharing and it's new people that are coming in of like, y'all are always happy. You're moving forward. Do y'all ever get mad? And I'm like, of course we get mad. But we know that, hey, this is necessary for our business to grow.
Sure.
So we got to work together and be able to, have differences, have things that we may have conflict on, but then we work together to make it successful. Yeah. So that's been a big deal here. I've been asked more frequently with a lot of new people.
Yeah, I think we covered a bunch of that in episode 19.
Oh, yes.
On personal versus professional.
Yes.
Shelby, what's one of the most frequent asked questions you get?
Lately, one of the most frequently asked questions is, what is that thing out front?
The water slide?
The water slide. So our vehicle storage tower.
Okay.
So if you drove down the interstate and it's bright orange right now, that's the building wrap. It's a vehicle storage tower. It's because 26 acres wasn't big enough, and so we had to go vertical. So it's a 4-story car parking tower, vehicle storage tower. And it was a creative thing that we saw in our 10 years of looking around and understanding. We saw that big cities have them when they really run out of space. Yeah. Carvana has it, and it was just kind of like a, look at me, I'm different. And then I found a guy in Tennessee and was like, he had built one, and I called and asked him about it, and he's like, yeah, it was a great investment. And, there's not revenue behind it, but it was made me stand out and be different.
Visual.
So we're super excited about that, but I get asked a ton of times, what the heck is that, and how do you get the cars in there? So come this spring sometime, it'll be done and ready to go, and so that's what it is. It's not a water slide.
Yep, there's a couple good ones that always come up for sure. Hey, thanks for joining us today. Make sure to check out our business and any of your inventory needs at LewsSuperstore.com. And don't forget CrossroadsConversationPodcast.com, any of the social channels or wherever you're listening today, whether it be Spotify, Apple, YouTube, anything else. Make sure to like us, leave us a review, and let us know what other subject you'd like us to cover.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure and give it a like, share it with your friends and family, and visit our website to send us questions about what you would like to know about the automotive industry or family business in general. Who do you want to hear from? Send them our way, and we'll do our best to answer any questions that you have. Thank you again, and we'll see you in future shows.